Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Regional Council meeting on April the 24th, 2024. I will now call on Will Short, Regional Clerk, to call the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
Councillor Deutschman. Present. Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Hunig.
Present.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett.
Present.
Councillor McCabe. Councillor Nowak. Councillor Solonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Ivanovic.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Councillor Wolf.
Present.
And we have regrets from Councillor Harris. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, colleagues. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. I would now entertain a motion to reconvene in open session. Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Erb. Please use your e-scribe to vote. Councillor Verbanovich, are you on eScribe? You were sure about that? Thank you. Colleagues, that is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we have no petitions, so we will move on to delegations. I'd like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. For those who are joining us in person, please proceed to the podium when you are called upon to speak. Please press the button at the base of the microphone to turn it on. If the light is green, the microphone is on. Anyone who registered before the deadline will have 5 minutes, and anyone who registered after the deadline will have 3 minutes. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in immediate removal from the meeting: interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, turning your camera on at inappropriate times, or hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder to delegations: please do not take offense if after your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and the ideas shared with us from our community members. I will now call on the first delegation, Michelle Michelle from Waterloo. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, council and fellow community members. My name is Michelle Incasa, and I'm a final year environment student at the University of Waterloo. I'm here today in my capacity as a climate justice student organizer and the co-lead of the climate justice ecosystem on campus. I'm excited to talk about our campaign to restore a night bus loop. But before that, I want to say that we express our solidarity with the Wilmot farmers here who are not allowed to present their thoughts. We stress the need for open and transparent communication. So we're here today. We've packed the room to talk about our campaign to restore a night bus loop. We officially launched in March, and we've made some incredible progress since then. We've had over 1,200 signatures on our petition, 90 students on our organizing server, many of whom are here today, 8 club endorsements of our open letter, and 4 media hits. This issue is deeply personal for many of us, and I won't steal the thunder from the rest of the 15 delegations, but here's my quick summary. At this point, buses and ION trains only run until midnight. But as students, we pay for GRTU pass, which is an unlimited transit pass, as part of our tuition. This is a fee of over $100 that we pay every single term. So why is it that transit services stop at midnight, even though we know that students and other people's lives don't stop after 12 a.m.? As a student, I went 5 years without night transit, and this has been really needed, especially since life has gone back to relatively normal since the pandemic. There have been many instances where I've had to change plans because I had to be home early. On nights out, I either have to coordinate with a designated driver or split the cost of an Uber. I usually don't leave my house after 10 p.m. because of a lack of transit options, which greatly limits my ability to participate in campus and city life. Buses are primarily a safety and accessibility solution to ensure mobility around the city. I've already paid for the U-Pass with the GRT, and I believe that this is something they should offer as part of the fee. I want my investment to go towards services that an overwhelming number of students and other Waterloo and Kitchener residents would benefit from. And we need this now. The fall term will see a huge influx of tens of thousands of students to Waterloo. Ridership has exploded in the past year, surpassing previous records, and night transit is an integral part of a safe, accessible, and well-connected city. To conclude, I support Councillor James's motion, which is coming up later in the agenda, and even though I'm graduating, I hope that future students will benefit from a night bus loop, one that I wish I could have had when I was studying here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I see no questions, but congratulations on graduating. Damien McHale, a night transit motion, and we also had an open letter submitted that has been added to our agenda. Welcome, Damien. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. We'll put that there. Well, good evening to the chair and to councillors. Like Michelle before me, I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible because there are a lot of delegates today. But I also would like to reiterate, like Michelle, that we do stand with the farmers in Wilmot. It is important to maintain our urban boundaries, and I think it's important, since they don't have a voice, that we give them that chance. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experiences with night transit. When I first moved to the city, it quickly became clear that Waterloo was not like the region in which I grew up. This was a modern region with a modern and comprehensive public transportation system. When I moved here, I came to eventually sell my car and began to rely on the system as my primary mode of transportation. It did work for a while, but eventually the gaps in the system became much more obvious. As I began to study and my workload grew, I spent more and more time studying late at night on campus. And oftentimes, I'd be missing the last bus. And oftentimes, especially in the dead of winter, a 40-minute walk home can feel like an eternity. So as I neared graduation as well, those experiences hanging out with friends, often relegated later and later into the evening due to our busy schedules, were harder to work out and hurt more to lose. Whether that's a friend that couldn't afford the $30 trip home on an Uber, or just didn't feel safe making that trip home in the dead of night. Oftentimes, plans would be canceled altogether based solely on the fact there was simply no good way home. These experiences matter. These are experiences lost, which I will not be getting back. Experiences that are possible, but much more difficult to come by outside of university. I will not see night transit before I graduate. But experiences like these are just one of the many reasons so many students have decided to show up and show their support for this motion. Through my delegation, we've attached an open letter from student organizations and clubs, political and apolitical, calling for regional council to pass this motion and for GRT to work with the university to make sure those same student experiences continue to be heard in the future. So there are many different reasons to vote in favor of Councillor James's motion today, and so many residents this would support. So whether you're voting to support those late-night shift workers who've had to pay their expenses for a car on a limited budget because they have no other option to support their job, whether it's to improve the public safety of our region or to improve the economic development of our cities, or just because you hear and understand these student experiences, I hope you vote in favor of the night transit motion so no resident, present or future, has to lose those same experiences I lost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damien. Again, I have no questions, but thank you for your intervention. The next delegation is Rose Silvestru on night transit. Welcome, Rose. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Council. I also stand with the farmers, and I do think that we should take steps to make sure that they have the chance to speak. But I am here to speak about night transit. So my name is Rose Silvestru. I am a student at the University of Waterloo. I live in Ward 6, and without night transit, I can't get home. As much as I would love to believe that I have the ability to stop procrastinating and really make sure that I'm in bed, getting a full 8 hours at 10 p.m., That's just not really reasonable for most students. So unfortunately, that means that most of the time, you will find me at 1 o'clock in the morning in the library, studying, making sure I've done my readings, and doing my best to become a contributing member of society within the next couple of years. And that means late nights. And late nights means walking home. And walking home means that me, a small woman, is going to be walking for an hour and 15 minutes to get from the university campus back home to my residence. And I'll be doing this in the wee hours of the night, when most people who are on my phone are asleep and unable to be contacted. This is a safety issue for me. I want to be able to get home just as much as most of my friends want to be able to get home. And it's not just about school. It's not just about staying late at night. It's also that I've been priced out of the reasonable walking range from the place that I used to work and also from school. This means that I now live much further away by bus and by walking. It also meant that I had to quit my job when I got priced out of that neighborhood because I can't get home at the end of my shift. I worked as a barista, and I often finished my shift at about 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no way for me to get home. So I had to go and seek alternative employment where I now make less money. So not only was I priced out of the region, but my income was cut. And this is the effect that not having night transit has had on my life. Putting night transit out there makes it easier for students to live further away from campus at lower rates. It puts less financial strain on us and the city. And at the end of the day, it's a safety option. It makes it easier for me to live my life and feel happy and safe in this region. I really believe that night transit is the way forward here. I think that if you don't implement it, we end up with a lot of students who are still going to continue to struggle to get home at the end of the day. We're going to end up with night shift workers who are going to struggle to get home at the end of their shift. And all of this means that we're having people who don't have the money to spend right now being forced to spend more on transit. This means less money on food. This means less money on rent. This means less freedom for us to live our lives in ways that are productive and beneficial to the entire region. These jobs that we're talking about are important. They bring genuine value to the region, and I want to be able to provide that value, but I can't because I cannot get home. So today I am here primarily to ask you to please vote yes to introducing night transit to the Waterloo region. Thank you very much, councillors, and I will leave you for the rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I have no questions for you. The next delegation is David Kuhn on night transit motion. Welcome, David. Are you speaking with Catherine Dong as well? David, you're letting Catherine speak for you. Is that what you're telling us? Okay. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm here on behalf of the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, on behalf of our president and vice president. I'm very pleased to say that I have been a student and a resident of Waterloo Region for the last 5 years. This is home for me, and I look forward to calling it home for a long time. As an organization, WUSA believes in accessible, reliable, and high-quality public transit for undergraduate students. It's not just school that we use transit for. We use transit to get to work, those unusual night shifts that we take to work around our classes. We use it to access necessities. We use it to go to the pharmacy, to grocery stores, to the passport office. Transit is an option that we are able to use because of the very productive agreement that we have, our UPass agreement, but our lives don't stop when transit does. There are so many trips that need to occur outside of the hours of when transit is being frequently run, and not being able to access transit during those times is an affordability issue, and it's a safety issue. Students can't afford to access many of the alternatives that we end up having to go toward with transit. We can't afford to always be taking cabs or rideshare, or much less owning a car. And it's a safety issue as well. After the hours of transit, when you think about the distances that students have to walk, the weather that impacts what that walking looks like, and the infrastructure that they're walking through, you wouldn't send your kid on that walk at 2 in the morning. So why do you send us on those walks? Beyond the affordability and safety of individual lives, fewer drivers on the roads is a benefit for the whole region. It benefits the safety of roads, it benefits our economic activity, it builds more resilient communities, and it promotes opportunities for land use diversity, which we all know builds a stronger community that we can all thrive in. We understand that GRT will be launching consultations on their 5-year business plan soon, and we look forward to adding our voices to those conversations. And we strongly support Councillor James's motion tonight as a first step. We also support other ongoing initiatives and future initiatives to promote accessible and high-quality transit in the region for students and all residents of the region. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and thank you for listening to us all.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I see no questions. Derek Song on the night transit motion. Derek, are you here? Welcome. You have the floor, and you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, councils. My name is Derek Song. I am a first-year computer science student at Wilfrid Laurier University, and I am here to talk about Councillor James' motion in support of night transit. Though I am new to the region of Waterloo, especially compared to my senior friends, I still rely on the GRT and Ion services a lot, especially to commute and explore Waterloo region, as I don't have a car. While I was fortunate enough to live off on campus this summer, I and a lot of other students will have to live off Laurier from second year, and some will need to rely on GRT to commute to school every day. As students, we often need to stay up late, as we have inflexible schedules for late night studying or for recreational purposes. Late night transit will help Laurier students like me, especially since the university opens up the library to 2 a.m. every day during exam season, as well as operates facilities like the 24-hour lounge. Wilfrid Laurier and the University of Waterloo also have a double degree program, forcing students like my friends to travel to both campuses often. Late night GRT services will make it more accessible for all students to access those services. Additionally, late night GRT service provides a safe yet affordable way to get home, especially if you are alone, vulnerable, or not fit to drive. In the 2020 collision report, it showed that 110 pedestrians were involved in a collision in 2019. Within that, it revealed that 49% of drivers failed to yield the right of way involving a pedestrian collision. Around Laurier, many of my friends and I don't feel safe crossing the street, especially at night when we have massive 5-lane roads like University Avenue and Weber Street North, with drivers often speeding above the speed limit. Late night GRT service also makes it more equal for lower income students to travel around Waterloo. An Uber from Laurier to Uptown Waterloo costs $10 without including surge pricing, which not many people can afford often, especially considering variables like housing, groceries, and tuition. Moreover, we already pay $113.30 per term for a GRT transit pass. So why not extend GRT service so it will increase student ridership and create more transit users, thereby paving a way to a more equitable way to travel around Waterloo. Finally, increased GRT service at large will allow the region to meet its low carbon goals set by the Transform Waterloo Region Plan. More transit will incentivize people to take transit for life, as they don't have to plan their schedules around transit, instead of having the peace of mind to just go on a bus and go on. This will reduce the region's carbon footprint, free up traffic, and as well as parking spaces. A common complaint about Laurier is that it doesn't have enough parking permits to allot it, but if we increase transit users, that will decrease demand for parking while not having to tear down more land for parking lots, thereby protecting our local environment and watersheds. Late night GRT service makes the region more navigable for vulnerable lower income and students who fight transit most. It creates a more equitable, cleaner, and affordable way to travel for studying, recreation, and work. It also creates a pragmatic short-term solution to reduce the demand for parking lots while not affecting the environment. I would like to thank Councillor James for her motion, as well as all the students from both universities who have been active in this campaign. This motion and service will continue to make Kitchener-Waterloo a leader in transit in Southwestern Ontario, and will improve the lives of many, including me, for generations to come. Thank you.
Derek, thank you very much. I see no questions. Thank you for your intervention. Azan Sayani, Welcome. You have the floor and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Azan Sayani, and I'm in my final year studying geomatics, a program in the Faculty of Environment at the University of Waterloo. I have lived in Waterloo for the entirety of my undergrad, being here during the worst of the pandemic and as the region recovered from it. Throughout this time, I've seen varying levels of ridership on transit. I've been on transit when the bus and the Iron have been almost completely empty during the pandemic, and I've also been on the bus and Iron where there's been almost no place to stand, especially now as things have gotten, especially as things have gotten back to normal. Late one night at around 12:15 a.m., I found myself in Uptown Waterloo and needed to get back home. The last bus or Iron that I could have taken for the day had already left, leaving me with only two options, which were to walk or to take an Uber. Luckily, I was able to walk alone and made a 2.71-kilometer journey on foot, taking me half an hour to get back home. This is not the first, neither the only time I found myself in this situation in the past 4 months. I walked along King Street to the Waterloo Town Square and then used Laurel Trail to access University Avenue, which I then used to get home. This would have been served by the 91. By taking the 91, the portion of my trip that would have been made on foot would have been less than 10 minutes long, as opposed to the half an hour that I spent that night. I would like to mention that my experience is not the only reason why I'm here to advocate for night transit. The impacts of climate change are also important to me, since they've been discussed repeatedly in my classes as a student in the Faculty of Environment. Half of all greenhouse gas emissions in the region of Waterloo come from transportation. Public transportation can significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and therefore are an essential tool to mitigate climate change and its impacts. In a class I took in public transportation this semester, I also learned that students who rely on transit are more likely to continue using it while working than those who don't. This means that implementing night transit will not only reduce emissions by cutting down on the use of personal vehicles and vehicles used for ride-sharing like Uber when trying to get home after regular GRT service ends at night, it will also make students more likely to rely on public transit after graduating, thus helping to reduce our emissions in the future. If our transportation system doesn't actually cover the needs of students, how can we expect them to have a positive enough experience to continue relying on our system in the future? Lastly, I would like to thank Councillor Colleen James for raising the motion for night transit to be available in Kitchener-Waterloo. Voting in favor of this motion to implement night transit will give people a safe and convenient way to commute late at night and help students to reduce their ecological footprints not just now, but even in the future, if they can rely on transit when they need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Azan. The next delegation is Joshua Beach Falshaw. Joshua, are you here? Welcome to the podium. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Falshaw. I am a recent alumni of the University of Waterloo School of Urban and Regional Planning. I am now a professional planner. One of the advantages of being an alumni is that I actually began my studies prior to the pandemic, back when Grand River Transit operated the night service. At the time I was 17, so I never used the night services to go uptown, but they would prove to be very useful. During my first year, I lived at St. Paul's University College, now United College. As one of the 4 university colleges, my friends and I participated in intramural sporting events between the 4 colleges. One of these events was a road hockey tournament, and during said tournament, a good friend of mine was hit in the eye by the road hockey ball. While he suffered no permanent damage, he did require medical attention. As we were first years with limited funds and no cars, we chose to take chose to take transit to Grand River Hospital. This would not have been possible without the night services that GRT offered at the time, as my friend was not discharged until the early hours of the following morning. In my mind, this is a perfect example of the value provided by regular night transit services. Yes, night transit services provide safe transportation options for those going out in the town late at night. We have seen all around the world that night transit also provides significant benefit for shift workers, overnight workers, artisans, and any other profession that works outside of the classic 9-to-5 work structure, which is a proportion of our population that is ever expanding in our current economy. All of this, of course, is on top of those who take transit for unscheduled trips, such as hospitals, family emergencies, or any other reason that people travel at short notice. All said, Waterloo Region is one of Ontario's greatest and most important municipalities. As projections show, unprecedented growth rates in the region over the decades to come, the region's importance is only going to increase. This just makes it more imperative that GRT reinstates night transit services. While the motion before you today discusses routes 91 and 92, we highly encourage the Regional Council and Grand River Transit to explore a wider implementation of night transit services all across the entirety of Waterloo Region to meet the needs of all of the region's residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joshua. The next delegation, I see no questions, is Craig Slosh about the night transit motion. And Craig, I believe you have a PDF that you submitted?
That's correct.
Okay.
I have a question in the
Oh,
format.
excuse me, Councillor Craig, is that a question of the last delegation?
It is, and I'm sorry that the system's a tiny bit slow.
Joshua, do you mind coming back? And Craig, my apologies, we'll get your PDF up. Councillor Craig.
No, I appreciate your commentary, and especially when you talk about other populations in the region of Waterloo, like night workers as an example. And we have a number of areas where people after midnight don't have transit. Do you think it would be fair that we would look at that first across the region to make sure we're fair with everybody before we arbitrarily just simply move ahead with this particular motion? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you raised the issue, and I agree with you.
Definitely. I think it's definitely something worth considering. I remember I used to be one of those workers. For just over a year of my undergrad, I worked at Conestoga Mall at this area, which only closes on late nights during the week. So I definitely think there's merit there, but I think that we've seen with other similar projects that getting something is better than trying to get something really good. And so since we are advocating for the implementation of services that GRT has run previously, it is our feeling that it would be easier to implement on such short notice as would be September. So I would say, well, in the long run, it is probably better to look away from what has been used in the past, as it is like Route 91 is without question a very student-centric service.
Sure.
And yes, I think it is definitely worth it or very important to move away from that and serve all residents of Waterloo Region. But for the short term, in the interest of getting some night transit service over no night transit service, I would argue that good is better than perfect.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. And Craig Slosh, welcome, and sorry about that hiccup. You have 5 minutes.
Oh, do we have the slides? Well, I can do the introduction while we start. All right, good evening, members of the Region of Waterloo Council. My name is Craig Sloss, and I live in Uptown Waterloo. So I first came to Waterloo as a student in 1999, and this year I'll be celebrating my 25th anniversary as a resident of Waterloo. And I'm here today to voice my support for reestablishing late-night transit. Before I begin, though, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the student members of our community who have been driving this initiative forward. I'm always impressed by how hard you all work to bring broad benefits to our community, students and non-students alike. Waterloo Region is a fortunate place to be a home for students who are so dedicated to making our region a better place. And I'll say from my own perspective, I mean, I understand that this is primarily a student-based issue, but it does also benefit longer-term residents like myself. As someone who lives in Waterloo, if we were able to expand light transit, I have a lot more options in terms of visiting downtown Kitchener for events that go late in the evening, for example. So I think I'm going to cut out a little bit from the middle of my presentation. I wonder if you wouldn't mind going just to the final slides. So hopefully by saving a little bit of time, maybe we can offer some time to the Wilmot farmers who are here and would also like to speak. So yeah, on my last slide, this is a map that I put together to compare the stops on the old late night transit loop to the parts of the city that have the highest concentrations of transit users. Now, this data is from the 2021 census, and it's based on the percentage of residents who commute to work via transit. So these could be people who do work late at night and need transit to come home. It could be people who might take transit to work during the day and continue to use transit to go to evening events. There's certainly also residents who would use transit late at night that aren't captured in this data. For example, someone who drives to work may rely on transit if they're going out to a bar for the evening, and people like this won't be captured in this kind of data. But nevertheless, the data is still useful for us to get a general idea of where transit users are concentrated in KW. So what I like about this motion in particular is the way that it balances quick action with longer term improvements. So using the old late night loop as a starting point provides an effective quick fix because it already significantly overlaps with the locations of transit users. On the map, transit stops are shown as the green dots, and the darker purple shading, the darker the purple shading is, the greater percentage of residents commute using transit. So what we see here is that a greater portion, a significant portion of the dark purple areas would be well served by the stops from the old late night route, which makes it a nice quick fix. But as you can see on this map, it indicates that there's still room for improvement. One example that I noticed off the top of my head is that there is a potential to maybe extend late night service to the Beechwood area. And of course, we can have this, this exploration go even further. As Councillor Craig suggested, there are probably people who are not going to be captured by this route who would also benefit from late night transit. The portion of the motion directing further night transit options to be included as part of the 2025 budget is important because it allows time for us to fully explore the feasibility of night transit in this and other areas without sacrificing a quick improvement. I also think it's important to include late night transit expansion as part of the 2025 budget because it is a fiscally responsible decision. By providing safe routes for people to get home late at night, we can reduce the rates of safety incidents that occur at these times of day. And from a budgetary perspective, it's a lot cheaper to prevent these incidents in the first place than it is to pay the costs to address them after they occur. Finally, I'd like to close by
Craig, you've got
reminding
1
us.
minute remaining.
I'd like to close by reminding us all that maintaining a robust public transit system is a critical part of enabling our cities to grow within existing urban boundaries and keep our commitment to protecting this, the countryside line that many of us still believe in. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my feedback today, and I hope we can count on your support.
Thank you, Craig. We do have a question. Councillor Deutschmann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Craig. Thanks for coming in. Just a quick question. Is TriTag back up and running, or do you know that offhand?
I'm not associated with them, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you don't know. Okay, thanks. But I appreciate the detailed data that you provided to us. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Thank you, Craig. That's all the questions we have. The next delegation is Chin Chen Zhang. Welcome. You two are talking about the night transit, and you have 5 minutes.
Honorable chairs and councilors, my name is Chin Zhang. I'm an international student studying physical science at the University of Waterloo, a resident living in the city of Waterloo, and a transit enthusiast who is really interested in the transit of the region of Waterloo. I'm here today to advocate for the motion of night bus transit service, Route 91, 92, serving the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, Uptown Waterloo, and downtown Kitchener. First, as a transit enthusiast, I would say the transit in the region of Waterloo is a reliable system used by many people. In February, we reached 2.3 million ridership, which is much more than any other similar municipalities like London, Ontario, which is a really similar municipality with similar population and also a university city. We are environmental friendly system. We introduced fully electric buses, which could let the region of Waterloo embrace the nature in a very good sustainability way. However, as an international student, I can see the students are facing some challenges to live in the city of Waterloo. Firstly, we are experiencing way expensive housing option around the campus. The rent of average apartment rooms closer to the University of Waterloo and Welfare Laura University is over $1,000 a month. Also, we face the scarcity issue. Because of scarcity, it is so hard to find a satisfactory accommodation, and this causes a lot of student apartment rental companies violate the interest of the residents. Also, we're facing the budget issue. As an international student, we pay way more tuition than any other student, and this causes us to have really low budget on any other things. Also, we pay a lot in rent, which causes us to have no choice to use the public transportation. So I will say it is very important to bring the night transit back to regional Waterloo because of these reasons. Also, students are forced to use public transportation every day. We can see there's a peak of ridership in September 2023, which matched the school returning date of university students. Accommodation for this student would heavily depend on public transit. When I was riding the Route 7 along the King Street, I can see there's a lot of developer building a new apartments around the Grand River Hospital, the downtown Kitchener. It is a very good opportunity for students to move there if the night transit is possible. Also, environmentally speaking, many students, like my classmate, choose to own a car, share a similar reason for unsatisfactory public transit. To make the region of Waterloo a green region, it is very important for public transport. The public transit can play an important role as a solution to this situation. My thought about the individual routes, the 91 night bus would take people down King Street, passes many student apartments along the King Street, like I mentioned, near the Grand River Hospital, directly to the downtown Kitchener. Opens possibility for newly built student apartment along the King Street, in
You
the
have 1
uptown
minute
Waterloo,
remaining.
in the upper Waterloo and the downtown Kitchener. The Route 92 passed through multiple hotspots for many student apartments, including University King, Columbia Street, Columbia Fisher-Hallman Road. These places are cover the top popular student accommodations, so it could resonate with the needs of many University of Waterloo and Welfare Laura University students. In conclusion, it is important for us to bring night transit to the region of Waterloo, since it has been the potential to help solve the housing crisis for students and late night workers by providing a safer, reliable transit option for them and connecting them to newly built student apartments far away from campus. Night transit could also impact a student decision about buying a car. As a transit enthusiast, I can't wait to see our great transit system become better. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and just about perfect timing. The next, I see no questions. The next delegation is David Terracy. To speak about night transit. And David, you have the floor. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, I think I submitted an image. I don't know if that made it in.
I believe it was attached to our papers. I don't know, can we? It was attached to the agenda, but we will put it up on the screen.
Okay. Thank you, yeah. Okay, hello. My name is David. I've been living, studying, and working in Waterloo region for a little over 2 years now. I study engineering at the University of Waterloo. I'm in my 4th year of study. I have worked for a couple of the local tech companies in our region. And I'll start with a bit of an anecdote. I submitted this photo. I took this photo late last year in November, and this is the last bus that leaves the University of Waterloo bus terminal. It leaves at 12:17 a.m. on weekdays, and as you can see, a lot of people are using it. And it's not always quite like this. Like I'm standing at the front here, barely squeezing in. It's not always this quite crowded, but it is almost always busy. And it's just one bus, it's just the bus that I happen to take because I live about a 10-minute ride on this bus. It would take me 30 to 45 minutes to walk. And I often find myself out late on campus or uptown, and this is the part of the strategy I use to get home. I've taken this last bus of the day many times. And I'm sure a lot of the people on this bus would have preferred to not rush to get the last bus of the day at the last minute to avoid being stranded at the bus terminal. And I guess to demonstrate this further, the University of Waterloo bus terminal is an important hub, not just for students, but also for people who use GO Transit to go between cities. Sorry, I forgot words. In fact, after this last bus leaves, there are 4 GO buses that arrive at University of Waterloo Terminal and drop people off. That's every day, including weekends. And when I moved here in early 2022, a lot of this wasn't an option. We were still recovering from the pandemic, and there was a lot less transit service than there is now. And I'm very happy with the way that both GRT and GO service has recovered in those past 2 years. And I'm able to, as someone who primarily relies on transit to get around, I'm able to take a lot more trips than I wasn't able to take 2 years ago. But this kind of trip where you go to Toronto or the GTA via GO Transit and stay out like watching a concert or a Leafs game or visiting friends and family and getting back on a late night GO bus. That's something that GO has enabled, and it's great that that's available, but that's only available for the small number of people who live near a GO bus station, because when they get off the GO bus, they have no GRT connection to get them the rest of the way home. So I really feel like even though our transit system shuts down at midnight, our city and our region does not shut down at midnight, and I think the transit system really needs to reflect that. And I'm really excited about Councillor James's motion to
You have 1
continue our
minute
region's
remaining, David?
transit expansion. Sorry? Oh, 1 minute.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. I'm excited about Councillor James's motion to continue the region's transit expansion, which I've been very happy with over the past couple of years, and give more people access to safe, affordable transportation late at night. I'm fully in support of it, and I think it's something that I think there's a lot of demand and desire for, and will be very helpful to a lot of people, including myself. Thank you.
So David, don't go anywhere. We have a question, but I need to tell you that everybody who's associated with transit on the staff here are loving the safe, affordable, reliable transit. So you can keep saying that because you're just making their day. Councillor McCabe has a question.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, and thanks to you and to all the previous delegates and the ones who are yet to come. Really appreciate all the support that you're bringing to this issue. And of course, as Chair Redmond just said, your use of the system, because obviously that's really critical. I'm a user as well, a transit user as well. Just wanted to, could you just, I think I missed you when you said how many GO buses are come in every evening at midnight or after midnight, because I think that's a really interesting and important point to this, that 'cause personally, I didn't realize that the GO buses came in that late at night and then drop off where there's no service, there's no GRT service or ION service. So how many buses was it?
Yeah, there are 4 buses. 2 of them are Route 30 buses, which come from Bramalea Station, which connects to a GO train that goes from Toronto Union Station. The other 2 are Route 25 buses that come from Square One in Mississauga. And I think the last one of them arrives at around 1:45 in the morning.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I wasn't aware of that. I think that's a really important.
Yeah, I have been on one of those buses at least a couple of times, and I've had to make plans to actually be able to get home at night.
Right, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's all the questions. The next delegation is Remington Z. You too are going to talk about the night transit motion, and you have 5 minutes, so welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Remington and I am a mathematics student at the University of Waterloo. I'm also the president of one of the signatories to the open letter, the Pure Math, Applied Math, and Combinatorics and Optimization Club. Although I am not speaking on behalf of the club, I'm just sharing the story of me and my friends. And before I get started, I would like to express solidarity with the Wilmot farmers that are here today. So I live in one of the many apartment buildings geared towards students near campus. And in fact, nearly my entire friend group lives on Leicester Street, except for a couple of people who live in Uptown or over near the Costco, who are always the ones missing from our late night hangouts. And it's not because they don't have time. Most of them often ends up gaming with us online anyway, after they get home, but they need to get home earlier in the evening. Obviously, there are a lot of factors that contribute to the stress that students experience, but one of my friends has said that having to go home way earlier than everyone else has, and the isolation that this causes has definitely contributed to his mental health struggles. Weekdays aren't so bad. The last bus for him leaves at 10:40, and that's about enough time for a group of CS and math students with horrible sleep schedules to get a late dinner together. Weekends are a lot more difficult, with no morning lectures the next day and no pesky Friday night due at 11:59 assignments. Saturday nights are our big hangout nights, and for my friend who has to bus home, the last bus on Saturdays is at 7:20, but obviously he doesn't want to take the risk of missing the last bus, so he always tries to make the second last bus, which is 6:50, and like it's not even dark at that point yet, so it would be like really early for him to get home, and every time he has to leave, everyone else in the group complains about it. And more recently, this term, when we were looking for housing for the next school year, the transit access was a big consideration as well. With how expensive housing around campus is, more and more students are choosing to live farther away. And while my friends who are moving to Kitchener next year are excited to explore all of the activities they could do near their new home, our lives are still anchored to campus as students. And our opportunities are really limited when the connection between school and home is severed so early in the night each day. I hope that next term, I can study on campus with my friends, have them over at my place for dinner, hang out a little longer, and they can still safely and reliably get home after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Remington. I see no questions, although your classmates may want to know where you live so you can make dinner for them. Alan Liu. Welcome, Alan. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Alan, and I'm a student at the Knowledge Integration Program at the University of Waterloo. When my friends ask me what I think is the best thing about Waterloo, the first thing I talk about is not the world-class universities, it's not the numerous bubble tea shops, it's especially not the numerous geese that invade this city every season of the year. Instead, it's the ION and the public transit. Where other medium-sized municipalities fall short, Waterloo serves as a worldwide model for good public transit. This is why I was rather surprised to hear that for the first time this April, that Waterloo used to have a night service that was never restored after pandemic-era cuts in service. I find it a bit disappointing that an otherwise stellar public transit system doesn't offer a service found in other neighboring cities, such as Guelph. As a student, I often hear my fellow classmates talk about their struggles in catching the last bus. From late-night study sessions to intimate bonding moments that are hard to come by after university, these events are often cut short or canceled entirely because missing the last bus forces these people to pay extra for an Uber or walk home in the dark. The former, paying for an Uber, drives support away from our public institutions and into the hands of private corporations, while the latter, simply walking home in the dark, puts students at risk, especially those who may come from marginalized backgrounds. I've also personally had to deal with this issue at a celebratory event for the aftermath of the International Championship of Collegiate A Cappella competition. This competition involves hundreds of vocal ensembles across the United States, Canada, and the UK in a celebration of a cappella singing, and one of the sites of the competition is right in the heart of the University of Waterloo, where 5 UW a cappella groups compete and consequently bolster the arts in this region. Warnings were put in place for this celebratory event that buses would not be available after 12 a.m., leading to stress as attendees had to figure out a way to go home in this dark, cold January weather. I was fortunate enough to have a person who could drive me, but many others were not so lucky. My other experiences with night transit show me that the importance of having such a service cannot be understated. In Toronto, the place I call home, besides Waterloo, night transit gives me the freedom and mobility to travel between the downtown core and my home in North York. In Germany, where I spent a summer doing a research internship, I was able to easily go between the cities of Cologne and Aachen in times as late as 3 a.m., giving me the ease of comfort that I would be able to return home safely. My own personal experiences are important, but it's just as important to consider our fellow citizens who work night shifts or who cannot rely on a private vehicle due to costs or other factors. For all of us, night transit can do a lot more in reducing the cost of living in one of Canada's most livable cities. Despite Waterloo being a smaller size city, hasn't stopped it from pushing forward with an LRT, running more than 50 bus routes, or modernizing its fleet with electric vehicles. Waterloo has certainly shown ambition in its public transit, and it can continue to show that ambition by re-implementing these night routes that were in place before the pandemic. I'd like to thank Councillor James for introducing this motion and giving a voice to Waterloo residents who desperately need the service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. I see no questions. The next delegation is Ashwin Anamali. Welcome. You have the floor and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Ashwin Annamalai. I'm a resident of the city of Waterloo. Council has the power to permit or deny anyone from speaking here. So if council was actually committed to public dialogue and free speech, they would decide to permit our farmers to have a voice at the table today. That being said, let me get to my delegation about night transit. Buses 91 and 92 might be just bus routes for a lot of people, but for me, it has a lot of emotional connection. I'm one of the lucky few people in the room who got to use buses 91 and 92 when I was a student at the University of Waterloo. So, you know, my partner Shiva, she's here with me. She used to go to school at McGill in Montreal, and after a 14-hour trek, she used to come in the night and get down at Davis Center at the University of Waterloo, and then we used to take the 91 right after. So I have a lot of special memories in that bus, and I'm happy that it's going to come back. I'd like to thank Councillor Colleen James for taking leadership on this. A lot of us are not your constituents, but you constantly keep engaging with us for public transit. So thank you so much, and keep up the great work, Councillor James. Huge fan of your work with respect to transit. I'd also like to thank my good friend Damien Mikhail from the UW NDP. He tried really hard in organizing. Like, organizing is not easy, but he managed to get this movement together, and he managed to get half of his club here today. And there is also another person here in the crowd, Sammy Baj from the UW Greens. By just virtue of coming here to the council, he brought 100% of the UW Green Club. Thank you for coming, Sammy. I'm sorry that you don't have a chance to speak here because you've been booked out, but thanks for bringing 100% of the UW Green Club in support of night transit today. So besides 91 and 92, we need a lot more buses, like 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. Why not? Because there is demand for night transit, as Councillor Craig pointed out, like all across the region, and we need all of that. And since 91 and 92 is along a very dense transit corridor, and there are so many dense buildings there, it makes the most sense to start with those two routes. Mayor McCabe is quite familiar with my advocacy for ending parking minimum requirements. Without the 91 and 92 and other night buses, it's going to be a tough sell at the City Council at the City of Waterloo. So this is the need of the hour. I'm so glad we had it back in the day, and then COVID happened, and then we lost it, but I'm so glad it's going to come as soon as September. So that is really good. A lot of people know the benefits of the night transit bus, but hardcore transit nerds like myself would know that this bus is almost like your private taxi, because if you look at the rules for safe travel on the GRT's website, after 9 p.m., you have the option to request an alternate stop. So after 9 p.m., when you're taking the night transit bus, you can walk up to the driver and you can ask them to be dropped off at any safe point along the route. So people that had planned to make use of the night transit bus, please make sure that you get down closer to your home so that you can save the walk and you can get home safe and fast. So that being said, I'm very excited for all of this, and I'm confident that it's going to pass. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
So Ashwin, don't run away. We have a question from Councillor Hunick. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Thank you, Ashwin, for coming, for speaking intelligently, for raising awareness, and for making us all laugh. It's needed on a day like today. Chair Redmond, I have a question for staff in regards to this motion. Does that come now or later?
We would do that at the end of the delegations.
There will be an opportunity to ask questions of staff, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I guess that was the question. You can sit down.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
The next delegation is Michael Drucker, speaking on the night transit motion. Welcome, Michael. You have 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, members of council, my name is Michael Drucker. I'm glad to be here on behalf of TriTAG, the Tri-Cities Transport Action Group, to support Councillor James's motion on restoring night transit. Here in Waterloo Region, we should strive for a transit system that more people choose to use. And that means we need a transit system that they can trust to get them there and to get them back. Our roads don't close at night. Our cities don't turn off at night. Having a transit system that shuts down at night makes it unavailable then, but it also makes it harder for people to choose transit at all times of the day. The proposal before you is to bring back a late evening service targeting Uptown Waterloo and the university areas. That is a very sensible place for night service because of the high demand and because that service also used to run. But I would encourage you to think broader than that. There are shift workers throughout the region, people who could be using transit to get to a job but don't have that option. If people can depend on transit to be there at all hours, it opens up economic opportunities, makes our cities more accessible to more people. So beyond those special routes, I hope you consider how Grand River Transit could gauge the demand for and start fully overnight service on some of the most important regular corridors. As Jort Walker, the author of the book Human Transit, says, frequency is freedom. So the utility of transit depends on how long you need to wait to catch a bus. So it would be actually a mistake to spread this kind of service too thin. For example, it's probably too early to run it to the Wilmot countryside. But I instead hope staff can focus on a route like the 301 or the 12 and fill in the several hours there's no service in the schedule, and start seeing how seeing the difference that night transit can make to residents. But for now, I'm glad to see the motion put forward to restore routes 91 and 92. I encourage council to support it and to take advantage of this opportunity to help not just build transit use, but to build transit culture in the region of Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Don't go anywhere. We have a question from Councillor Craig.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your commentary. I guess my concern is the fact that, first of all, this isn't about Waterloo, it's about the region of Waterloo and the other cities and people that work in those other cities. And the townships, I'm being reminded here, that we have to keep a balance in terms of how we go forward. Would you agree that we should be looking at that in terms of, are there other particular pockets of areas in the region of Waterloo, municipality of Waterloo, that maybe need night transit also, before we move ahead with a specific request?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Craig. I don't think these are a contradiction. I think that I would view routes 91 and 92 as a restoration of service that already existed, that already had a clear demand pattern. And the only reason it's not currently in place is because of the pandemic. But transit ridership has rebounded far higher than it was before the pandemic. And so I think that the case for that specific service is really clear. I think that night service is really warranted, especially in places where people are working night shifts, and especially in industrial areas, many of those in Cambridge and outlying areas of Waterloo and Kitchener. But exactly what the service is that's viable, I think, is not obvious in a place with the density of the region of Waterloo. So I think there's potentially quite a bit of study and experimentation needed for that. And routes 91 and 92 are much more clearly something that is proven and useful. So I wouldn't make the perfect the enemy of the good there.
I appreciate that. Just if I may also, Madam Chair, you know, I'm very sympathetic to the delegations and what I'm hearing. Okay, I want to make that point clearly tonight. But we have also the umbrella over us of restraints with budget and where we go with that. Do you understand that also in terms of what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next delegation is Rodney Chan. Rodney, supporting night transit, and you have 5 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Rodney. You may have recognized me, or if you remember me, I was wearing the Ion costume last time on my presentation. I just wanted to start off first by answering or adding some comments to Councillor Craig's questions. I think they're definitely good questions. I care about equity. I think everyone deserves night transit. But I think this mainly was a thing about restoring service that was cut. And we thought that this would be a quick, easy fix because these routes already exist. And to study what other routes can be done would take quite a few months, probably even a year. And this is something we could do now. And we're aware that there's the 2025 to 2030 GRT business plan, and one of the bullets in the RFP says to explore night service. So that's when we can think of a more expansive plan. But for now, even though it's a student-centric plan, the King Street corridor, like as you saw on Craig's map, the other Craig, it has a really high ridership, so that already makes sense as a place to start. And usually when we implement like smaller projects or like a pilot, that can be a way to gauge what night ridership is like now, and we can use that information when we're creating a wider network. I'd also like to take some time, and since transit and land use are kind of intertwined, I support the Wilmot farmers, and I hope they get some time to speak too. And I'm sure you've heard everyone's personal experiences and are moved by them, but I wanted to talk about a little bit more of the technical elements. Night transit is a thing in Guelph. They have they have it in Toronto, and it's every 30 minutes and it covers the entire city, and I think that's a good model to go for. But I understand that Toronto is a really large city, so some place more comparable is Guelph, and they have 4 night routes, and each of the routes come around every 20 to 30 minutes, and they all kind of connect like the University of Guelph area and housing to the downtown and also where the GO station is, and they run up a down a quarter that's kind of equivalent to our King, And on that corridor, all those night buses combined is around 11 buses an hour. So on an average, that's around like 5-6 minutes per bus, just to give an idea of what night service looks like in other cities. Yeah. Also, a lot of, also regarding budget, I know that the budget is constrained, which is why we wanted to bring back the old night service here used to run. I think it was only Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And I think those would be the highest use when not only students are out going to friends' places or to businesses uptown, but also I'm sure local residents like enjoying going out on those nights. And if the budget is constrained to a point where we can't offer night service the whole week, maybe like Thursday, Friday, Saturday is a good place to start too. We really want to maximize the amount of transit hours to when they're needed the most. I just think that this is a good first step, is to bring back the 91 and 92, and from there we can see what it's like to explore more options. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. I see no questions. I can't help but comment on your shirt, though. I think the bus is terrific. I was teasing the deputy clerk when we heard you were all coming that maybe this was a class field trip, but at least you were taking public transit. And he replied to me, they'd probably be happy on a bus, too. So thank you very much for your intervention. The last delegation on this topic, night transit, is Natalie Van Hatteren. And Natalie, you registered late, so you have 3 minutes. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yes, hi. I'm the last speaker on this, so I'll try to keep it brief, as you have already heard quite a bit from us. Yes, my name is Natalie Van Halteren. It's a weird Dutch name, so I don't blame you, it's fine. I'm a Laurier student and an avid transit user and a transit enjoyer. I use the GRT, I use GO Transit, I use the VIA even sometimes, and I take the TTC, but my home is in Waterloo, and I often travel to and from the city. Late night transit exists in the form of the region's connections. You can take the rail or you can take the bus here, like was previously mentioned, late at night. But when you get here, you arrive in a transit desert. There's no option to get home other than walking halfway across the city or taking a very expensive Uber or taxi. A late night stroll is very dangerous, obviously, especially if it's going to be 40+ minutes from the Kitchener GO station or elsewhere. And the cost of private transportation is just not an option for people, especially while we're living in a cost of living crisis. The proposed night transit routes would be a lifeline for transit users in the region, as it does service some of our busiest areas, and it's a stepping stone to have this system in place so we can acknowledge other busy areas that are also in need of night transit. The current situation that exists, however, is a punishment for transit users, implying that just because you are unable to own or drive a car, you should be treated like a second-class citizen. You can't travel in your own city. You're unable to visit friends, unable to go to work, unable to explore the city and the region because you have no feasible transit options because there's no way home. The night transit plan that we have is a great step forward towards addressing the needs of all night transit users, but again, it's only the first step. But for everyone in the region, whether they're students, night workers, or just anyone who chooses transit, it is a very good first step. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Councillor James, for putting forward this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Natalie. I believe we have some questions. Do you have a question for the delegation? Thank you. Okay, Councillor McCabe.
Just because, sorry, through you, because you're the last speaker, I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thanks to you, but thanks to everyone who came presumably by transit tonight to join us. I mean, it's really wonderful, I think, particularly to have younger people involved and to getting involved in the system, in the our council system, but also, taking transit, caring about issues like this, public service issues, public services. So I really want to commend you all for taking the time to do this. I know most of you are living, it sounds like, living and working and studying, and hopefully going to stay in Waterloo, or at least in Waterloo region. And it really is great to have a chamber full of young people talking about services like this. And certainly, I'm very supportive of transit, and very happy with the way that staff are working hard to improve our transit system for all of for across our region. But I think you've made some really excellent points about this isn't new transit, this is restoring transit. So thank you very much to everyone who took the time to come tonight and share that with us. You've given us a lot to think about.
Councillor Hunick.
Sorry, my question is not for the delegation. My question is still for staff. But I did want to echo Councillor McCabe's comments that if nothing else but to prove that the democratic process works, I hope that the motion tonight is passed. And I thank you all for organizing and for giving us your thoughts and your experience and your desire for the region. And we hear you and we're ready to support you. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hunick. Those staff questions will come up when the notice of motion comes in the due course. So I will make a note that you have a question for staff. Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm just going to take a minute or so to thank you all for coming in and speaking to this and raising this. I think that it's brave to come and speak to us in this forum, and you were organized. I feel like back in my professor days, you'd all get an A. But thank you so much for coming in and supporting. And as my chair is planning and works, and transportation falls under that. Regardless of where we are geographically, it's Waterloo region, and I'm happy to bring this forward. And I'm not sure if you're going to be here when we get to the discussion, because I don't know if our transit will get you home after 10. It's just a side. But thank you all, and thanks for raising this. And I hope you continue with the engagement, because as Councillor Hunick said, this is your democratic right. So thank you.
So Councillor James, we are not taking attendance, but with the keen interest of all of these people, I can't imagine they'd leave. Natalie, we have one more question. Councillor Bravanovich.
Thank you very much, Chair Redmond, as I'm having some challenges with my e-scribe. But I, too, wanted to thank you, but also thank all of the delegations as well for coming in tonight. I, many years ago, had my beginnings in politics, both in student government in high school and in university, and advocating for a variety of things, and seeing this group here, along with members of our post-grad community who are living in the community, participating in this process this evening, is really encouraging, but also I think speaks to my little mic finally came on, but also speaks to your passion for the community and making it better, not just for yourselves, because a number of you indicated you're sort of in your final year, but thinking about those that are going to come after you. So thank you to all of you for coming this evening.
So Natalie, this is a mixed blessing of being the last speaker on it. Really, one more question I have, Councillor Craig.
Well, I'm going to be like everybody else and just make a speech. And I think, too, I certainly echo the comments of my colleagues about the passion that we have seen here this evening, about the commitment. I'm very supportive of young people in terms of my own movements in my own community and what I've seen and witnessed. The concerns for the future, which is in good hands with people like yourself. And I think tonight what it is, it's an interaction between the two of us, and we both learn. Learn from me in terms of my concerns, or what I see on a more global basis across the region. I mean, we're still waiting for an ION. We're still waiting for the GO train to Cambridge, and that's way off in the distance. But also, I think it's important to understand that we have to have some equity across the region as we do these things. But certainly tonight, I'm impressed. I certainly commend Councillor James for bringing out about 18 delegations. to talk to us, and I think it's been very positive in a lot of respects. Thank you.
So Natalie, thank you very much. Big finish. You may sit down now. That is the end of the questions. And thank you to all the delegations for coming in and bringing up some very good points. And some of you had some very unique points as well. Councillor Salonen?
Thank you, Chair. I was actually hoping to get your indulgence. A group of my residents from Wilmot are sitting here tonight, and I know that one, Adam Van Burkite, had actually registered earlier. I completely respect the decision to ask them to come to the next meeting due to timing, but also I just ask if we could indulge 5 minutes of our time to allow Adam to come up and speak to council tonight.
So I would tell you that we have a policy. Topic to which Adam wants to address is not on the agenda, so that was why he was suggested he come another night. So we do have a policy that directs that. I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't come to hear about the night bus service, but
So
I would...
point of order, Madam Chair. Is it the purview of council that we can move a motion to waive that?
Councillor Deutschman, that's just what Councillor Salonen has just asked, so I'm going to ask with the indulgence of council to make an exception, because this is not on the agenda, that we would provide 5 minutes for the delegation, because he did approach the region before the deadline, so I think 5 minutes is appropriate. Do I have consent of council that we don't need a motion? Everybody, do we have... I see everybody nodding heads, so I would suggest, and it's Adam Van, Burkett. Adam, welcome. Come to the podium. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Council. It was not really expected that I was still able to speak, but thanks anyway. I want to thank the students for bringing this up, and also thanks our mayor for bringing this motion in. Thanks for giving us to speak at the meeting. We immigrated to this country in '96 together with my wife and 3 children, and at this moment, so far, they are all 3 married, and they have brought us 11 grandchildren. We are farming and on Huron Road as Mountain Oak Farm. We have 11 grandchildren. 8 of them are all interested in farming. That a little bit about our family. We're trying to strive for, in our farming, to be stewards for in our fields and with our animals. We care for our animals. We need the feed for our cows to make the milk for Mountain Oak cheese. Mountain Oak cheese, I hope you have maybe seen a little bit about it. It's a well-known cheese so far as I know. We came here to farm, and we have been thankful that we could have a prosperous life so far. That being said, we are thankful and we are really blessed with our hard work. But at this moment, we bought a farm in the block what is now going to be assembled, where the pressure is on, and we feel really embarrassed with it, the way this is handled. My son wants to speak about that, if that's okay with you. But again, I want to thank for the possibility to speak.
Good evening, everybody, councillors and mayor. So my name is Arjo van Bergijk. I'm the youngest son, and I run the home farm. And we bought that farm for the next generation. I got 3 kids. Anyway, so when Ken Aker approached us on March 8th, they didn't come to ask if they could buy the farm. They came and told us they're gonna buy it, if you like it or not. If not, we're gonna expropriate you off your property. The way we've been treated from them is extremely unfair. We got an offer on my farm for $29,000 an acre. That is not right. It's easy enough. I mean, I put everything on the line to be able to make it work. I get up every morning early and I work almost 24 hours a day to be able to make my payments on that farm. And I put my family and everything in jeopardy of doing it. And then they get treated like it was some sort of an investment. Like, this is not fair. And it's a disgrace for how we get treated by Ken Aker. And from the region, that there's no transparency from anybody who are willing to take the time to listen to us and talk to us. And now we've been leaving and being left in the dark. I mean, for a while, I didn't even know if I could plant my crop. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Anyway, that's all I got.
So
There'll be no clapping. Please restrain, there's no clapping allowed. Did you want to finish, Adam?
Yes, please. So thank you for that we are allowed to speak. We are farmers, we're trying to feed cities. And the way we're being treated this moment, they try to steal your land. And at this moment, there is a whole robbery going. At this moment, they steal your equipment, they steal your gasoline, they can come on your properties. The only thing the police is doing, they're giving you an occurrence number. That's the only thing. We feel really being jeopardized at this moment, and have the experience when we came here to Canada, that it was a welcoming country. We felt really coming in a warm environment. This moment, I feel unsafe. What is still secure in our properties? Nothing anymore. We've been even on the roads. It's horrible to get on the roads with equipment between 3 and 6 o'clock, 6:30. You're not able to go with a tractor and equipment. And on top of that, we get challenged with fertilizer prices who are going out of the roof, carbon tax, higher labor costs. So just to give you an example, in a couple of weeks, we get announced with a higher carbon tax. We bring cheese to Sobeys. If I want to increase my price, it takes me more than a half year to increase our prices. That's a couple of issues where we as farmers, we are dealing with. And then we get set away as a couple NIMBYs. I'm sorry, that really hurts us. We are not a fringe minority. We are farmers and we want to be proud of a job. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. So colleagues, that ends the delegations. Our next agenda item are minutes of the previous meetings. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for items 7.1 through 7.5. Moved by Councillor Wolf, seconded by Councillor Saladin. Please use your e-scribe to vote on the closed council meeting of March 20th. Council meeting March 20th, Community and Health Services Committee April 9th, closed committee April 9th, and the Planning and Works Committee from April 9th of this year. That is carried, colleagues. Thank you. Next agenda item is communications. The council information package and correspondence listed below was distributed to council electronically. These items are received for information unless anyone has something they want to bring forward. So that's the council information package from April 17th and Lorna Aberdeen regarding preserving the countryside line. There's also been additional correspondent items that are not in your agenda as it was received after the addendum package, and it will be sent out. It has been distributed to council electronically, includes a letter from the Waterloo Federation of Agriculture and Martha Orlochi. I now need a motion to go in, for the committee to go into Committee of the Whole to consider reports. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Williams. The motion is that the council go into Committee of the Whole to consider reports. Please use your e-scribe to vote yes or no. That is carried, colleagues. First report, item 10 is finance reports. Regional Road number 56, Bleams Road improvements, Fisher-Hallman Road to Trussell Road. Mr. Dyer is here to answer any questions. Otherwise, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Wolf, seconded by Councillor James. Please use your e-scribe to vote. That is carried, colleagues. Agenda item 10.2 is committee reports. It's Community and Health Services Summary, April 9th. Before we consider the summary to Community and Health Services, I'd like to call on Peter Sweeney. Peter, do you want to make some comment before we talk about the motion?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just an acknowledgement that one of the questions we were asked during the presentation of the plan to end chronic homelessness was with respect to some information related to both federal and provincial government investments. And as I noted in an email to Council this morning, shortly after that presentation, the federal government came out with an announcement around affordable housing and chronic homelessness. And just want to acknowledge that there's a high level of alignment between the plan through a housing first and a human rights approach and the federal approach and ours. And so just to let council know that that will certainly inform our advocacy strategy that we will come back with in the fall.
Thank you for that. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Salonen, do you want to move it or did you want to speak to it?
I just had a quick question. Could we separate it into two separate votes? So item 1 be one vote and item 2 be a second?
We could do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Erb.
I'd like to move it and I'd like to speak to it if I may.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wolf. Go ahead, Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At our committee meeting, we had many delegations and lots of conversations from council, and I didn't get a chance to speak to the report. So I'd just like to make a few comments this evening, if I may. And simply say that hopefully, so the goal of the report was to end chronic homelessness by 2030. And hopefully when we get to 2030, we're going to look back on tonight's decision to support the plan to end chronic homelessness as a historic and transformational decision in combating homelessness and giving a hand up to some of the most vulnerable in our region. And in some respects, this feels like an ion moment. Just like the vision years ago by staff to create a light rail transit system that we heard about this evening, our current staff in housing had the vision to end homelessness. And hopefully, just like the ION, after years of planning, resources, and community participation, the dream will be realized in 2020 like the ION was in 2018. And as Mr. Sweeney alluded, it feels that with the recent federal government announcement on funding to address affordable housing and chronic homelessness, the stars might be aligning for the region to be well positioned to advocate for what is in our plan and which clearly aligns with the goals of the federal government. The work that's been done over the past year has been transformational for our region, but most important for the population that the plan is intended to serve. Not only did staff continue to provide their trusted and reliable professional advice, but they also opened the door for other members of the community to be at the table. And in doing so, they made themselves vulnerable and acknowledged that to solve this problem, we need to not only hear all voices, but be prepared to implement what they are telling us. I've spoken and met with some of the community representatives involved in creating the plan since our committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they're all very appreciative of how staff willingly engaged them in the process, often engaging in difficult discussions, and acknowledging there will be many more difficult discussions as the process unfolds. Thank you to my council colleagues for embracing the plan. I'm hopeful it will be eventually recognized as one of the most consequential decisions this council makes in this term. Again, a special thank you to our staff for all the heavy lifting and hard work you did in creating this plan, which will hopefully be celebrated and acknowledged as something transformational when we get to 2030.
Thank you, Councillor Erb. I would go to Councillor Wolf. Did you want to make a comment as the seconder of the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just basically to echo Councillor Erb's remarks that this is a very important decision that Council made, and the plan is much needed. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results as soon as possible.
And I may be channeling my inner Councillor Craig at this point in time, but it does arm us very well to go to senior levels of government and say we now have a plan, we have a blueprint. So I would echo those comments as well. So it's been moved and seconded, and we were going to take this in two parts. So the first part is bullet point number 1. So I would ask you to use your e-scribe to vote. Councillor Hunick, did you want to speak to it?
Can you just clarify, Chair, which one is bullet point number 1?
My apologies. So number 1 is that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo accept in principle the plan to end chronic homelessness final report as the official plan to prevent, address, and end homelessness in Waterloo Region as outlined in the report of today's date. And that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo staff be directed to add area municipalities to the co-creators group to develop a detailed plan of recommendations, including comprehensive funding and advocacy actions based on the plan to end chronic homelessness actions outlined in a report and delivered to Council as part of the 2025 regional budget process. So that is bullet 1 that we are voting on now, and then we will vote on bullet 2 separately. So please use your e-scribe to vote, and my apologies, Councillor Hunick. Councillor Liggett, have you voted? It hasn't registered.
My e-scribe's spinning. So that's an affirmative for me.
Thank you. Colleagues, that is carried. The second bullet under that motion is that the regional municipality directs staff to explore opportunities and identify nonprofit organizations to lease 30 Christopher Drive, Cambridge, and 104 Sterling Avenue, South Kitchener to create culturally responsive childcare for Indigenous children and families and other families that face systemic barriers, as set out in a report dated April 9th, 2024. So that is the second part of the motion. Councillor McCabe? Oh, it's already been moved and seconded. Thank you. I'm sorry, I assumed that both are being moved by Councillors Erb and Wolf. But you could certainly add your voice of positivity. So that is carried, colleagues. The next motion is to vote to approve the summary of Planning and Works Committee dated April 9th, 2024. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Hunick, seconded by Councillor Nowak. This is multi-parted. It's got, Councillor Hunick, you don't want me to read this one, do you? It goes on for about 5 pages. Okay. Please use your e-scribe to vote. Colleagues, that is carried. The next agenda item is 10.2.3, Planning and Works Summary, April 24th, 2024. And it's to approve the summary. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Salonen, seconded by Councillor Schatz. Please use your e-scribe to vote. Councillor Liggett, you'll be pleased to know that your vote is showing. For anybody watching this, we're just working out a glitch. We haven't fallen asleep. Councillors Liggett and McCabe, could you, you have? Thank you. Good indication, that's a yes. Colleagues, that is carried. The next agenda item is 10.2.4, Administration and Finance Summary, April 24, 2024. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Bravanovich. Please use your e-scribe to vote yes or no. Colleagues, that is carried. The next agenda item, 10.3, is Board of Health, an update, and I would welcome Dr. Wong and offer you the floor.
Thank you, Chair Redmond and councillors, for the opportunity to provide a brief update. With regards to measles, with the global resurgence of measles, public health continues to prepare to respond to a case or cases in Waterloo region. While there have been no reports of measles to date in Waterloo region, cases continue to be reported in other areas of Ontario, with 14 confirmed cases in the province in 2024. Most provincial cases of measles have been travel-related. Public Health's enforcement of the Immunization of School Pupils Act has contributed to increasing the measles coverage rate. For example, in 7-year-olds, this rate increased from 57.8 at the beginning of the 2023-2024 school year to 89.1% to date. While Public Health does not collect vaccination data for adults, the numerous years of Immunization of School Pupils Act enforcement before the pandemic will have ensured that many students who are now adults are protected against measles. Regarding the Immunization of School Pupils Act, Wednesday, May the 1st is suspension day for secondary students. At this time, there are still 3,467 students who are not up to date with submitting or receiving their immunizations. We continue to have many available appointments for students to be immunized. Parents and students can report their immunization and book their appointments at our website, www.regionofwaterloo.ca/vaccines. Should anyone need additional support, they can also call and speak with a public health staff member at 519-575-4400. And finally, tomorrow will mark the last day of suspension for elementary students. Anyone who is still outstanding and suspended can return to school on Friday, April the 26th. There are 66 students still suspended from elementary school. Public health nurses called each student's parents directly to provide options to resolve the suspensions. We will continue to encourage parents to become up-to-date or file exemptions before next year's suspension process to ensure that students are not suspended as we go through enforcement again next year. Thank you. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Are there any questions? Seeing none, you have answered all our questions. Thank you very much. Next agenda item is other matters under Committee of the Whole. Motion for the Committee of Whole to rise and council to resume. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Schantz, seconded by Councillor Williams. Please use your e-scribe to vote that the Committee of the Whole rise and council resume. Councillor Deutschmann, have you cast a ballot? That is carried, colleagues. I would next consider a motion to adopt the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Please use your e-scribe to vote that the Committee of the Whole rise in council. No, that council adopt the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole. That is carried, colleagues. We have no motions. However, we do have a notice of motion from Councillor James. It is listed on today's agenda, and I will turn to Councillor James to speak to this motion if we have a mover and a seconder. So, Councillor James, you're moving it. Do you have a seconder? Moved by Councillor Salonen, or seconded. Councillor James, and we're not supposed to make note of who's in the gallery, but 99% of the people who delegated are still here, so good on you. Go ahead, Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, I am introducing this motion, which you all are well aware of, to assist in the advocacy of the students who brought this to my attention around the need to reinstate the late night transit loop. And having met with the students, spoken with the Uptown BIA, recognizing that, you know what, although I may go to sleep at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., not everybody does. And there was an ask there. There was a need for safety, our fiscal, economic, financial impact, and again, thinking about and understanding the history of this route and recognizing when it was canceled, it was during a time when there was low access to, there wasn't people riding the transit at that time due to the pandemic, but situations change as many do, and there is a definite need for this. I will say that I recognize that there is a need for transit, not just in the Waterloo area. I am not I'm not naive to that and recognize that we need to make our transit more efficient, more effective, more useful for those who are dependent on it and increasingly dependent on it. And the other aspect too, as well, is there are areas that do need transit that don't have transit now. And the other aspect is the financial component. So there are, three major factors in there, but I wanted to ensure that the students, those who are working shift work, those who are using transportation after hours, that their needs and their voice was reflected, especially as we move forward with our 2025 to 2030 GRT bus, our master or bus plan. Having this, and I was talking to some earlier today, it's kind of that qualitative data that you need to help inform future decisions. And I think that this is all part of it. I appreciate the students for coming in and engaging, the letters that did come in as well, reflecting the business in Uptown. And I'm happy to present this and looking forward to the dialogue. And if staff can speak to this, I do know staff are supportive, but I also recognize that as we work and build out our business plan, that there are things to be factored in. So happy to take any questions around this. And again, thanking the students and those who engaged, because this is how we make better informed decisions. So thank you.
Councillor Salonen is the seconder. Do you want to make a comment or two?
I just wanted to say thank you very much to everyone who came out and delegated and those who also wrote into us. Having been a student only back in 2019, I certainly understand the need for active transportation, especially into the evening. So I definitely hear what you guys are saying. And just thank you to my colleague, Councillor James, for bringing this forward. I do actually have a question of staff just on a financial perspective for implementing this plan. I just want to understand the impacts, but I am supportive of the overall plan of reinstating this.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So I don't have costing on either of the routes as proposed in the motion. I have the previous costing on Route 91 as was, which was Thursday to Saturday, 12:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. On an annualized basis now to provide that service would be roughly $61,000. So if implemented on the timeline of the motion, which is the September 2nd service change, would be about $20,000 this year. And that's just the Route 91 in the times I've provided.
Thank you. Councillor Salonen, that answers your question. Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Chair, I too have a question for staff. Is this the busiest route in the region?
So neither of these routes are currently operating. Both were canceled in spring of 2019 due to low ridership. So no, at that time they were not high performers, and as they're not operating now, I don't have a sense of what the demand would be currently.
I guess what I would suggest is there are other areas in the city or in the region that would also need this service or would be a better choice for this service.
Yeah, as Rodney rightly noted during the delegation, night transit is for consideration in the GRT business plan, but it is in consideration with other requirements of the service, such as geographic expansion, which you could think about as the township transit strategy, or some of our new and emerging neighborhoods. Increased frequency, so we do have routes that are experiencing crowding and the ability to solve for that, as well as time of day expansion, which is what's considered in the motion today to extend the span of our service.
So I guess what I'm asking is this motion, would you consider this a priority?
Yes, amongst many priorities of the network. I think by nature of it being in consideration of the business plan, it is the goal of GRT to introduce night service across the network to serve the education sector, also to serve the manufacturing sector, retail, restaurants, all of the things that were rightly noted tonight. It is a significant operational challenge to implement. It would move a full night transit network, not as Route 91 previously existed, would push us to a 24-hour operation. Today, we're about a 21-hour operation. So, our service attendants that clean fuel in buses would be impacted, our technicians who maintain and repair buses, and our network operations center. So those would all move to 24 hours. It's a big change for GRT. We'd update our operating model for operations and maintenance. We would update our collective bargaining agreements and a number of other contracts, including security. That is not what's in the motion today, but to move to full night transit while being a priority is one that will take significant investment.
Thank you. So my comment would be, like Councillor Craig, I am concerned about equity in the region and the fact that Cambridge at the moment has no ION, and it's going to be at least 10 to 15 years before we receive it. I'm not sure if we're not getting any night service. I see GO buses, etc., in Kitchener-Waterloo and none in Cambridge. When we're looking at expanding transit, again, it seems to be Cambridge second or third. So I am concerned about the money we spend and where we spend it, and the fact that it seems to be concentrated basically in Kitchener-Waterloo. Saying that, I am impressed with the delegations, and I think the service is important, and safety, affordability, all of those things are important. So I will be voting for the motion, but I really want you to keep other areas of the region in your sights. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunick.
Through the chair, I am most definitely in favor of reintroducing or reinstating routes 91 and 92, and I will be supporting that. I do have a question coming, but I want to lay out a couple comments first. Earlier today it was noted that all conventional transit is wheelchair accessible, and customers who are eligible for Mobility Plus can use conventional transit for free. That being said, there are several barriers to using conventional transit, including bus stops that are not accessible and inclement weather like snow. And so I'm not sure if what I'm about to ask is in the form of direction to staff or a motion. So clerks, chair, Commissioner Spooner, please help me. If we reintroduce routes 91 and 92, could we please look into, in the interest of equity, an equitable Mobility Plus counterpart? I realize that routes 91 and 92 are very localized. However, if you are a Mobility Plus user and you are not a dialysis patient, it is very difficult to get a ride beyond 10:30 p.m. People like me have been stranded at the hospital just because there's not even taxi service available after midnight that is accessible. So if we do this, and I really, really want us to, then I also need us to look into making the service equitable for Mobility Plus users, please.
I see a nodding head. Do you want to respond?
Through you, Chair. Councillor Hunick, I often agree with your takes on transit. I agree with this one too. We should, if we extend the time of day for conventional service, we should do the same for Mobility Plus. So, noted and thank you.
And I don't know what that looks like because the routes are localized, but thank you.
So is it fair to say that when you look at the master plan and going forward, this would be one of the components as well as the concern of Councillor Wolf that would be considered?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. So yes, you know, I will note the recent success of the Cambridge network redesign, and I will be back talking next cycle about new services in Cambridge. So hopefully Cambridge is feeling a little bit of the GRT love lately. The need to improve and expand Mobility Plus is the reason that GRT is undertaking a separate Mobility Plus business plan that will then be incorporated, but it needed a little bit of special attention. And I think when we talk about network expansion and geographic expansion, this growth is happening everywhere. It's happening within our 3 cities and it's happening in the townships. So we need to present a plan to equitably serve all of the geographies that we serve.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hunick, do you have another question or comment?
Should the direction established, which Commissioner Spooner is agreeable to, be added to the tracking list or something? Or how will this move forward?
We will add it to the tracking list.
Thank you.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. First, I'll say that I do support the motion, and these are 2 routes that were in service at one time. But my question is, if I understood your answer on the funding of the first one, the $20,000-ish was just for that 3-hour period, but I think you also said that the route is not running. So just wondering where the funding will come from to run it until 2025.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Very good question. So rightly noted, Route 91, when it did run up until spring of 2019, ran Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night from 12:30 a.m. until 2 a.m., so an extra hour-and-a-half extension on. Route 92 actually ran morning and afternoon peak, so it did not run at night. I understand the popularity of the route, and so we have, when those resources were reallocated, we have reallocated those service hours. And so the question of where, and again, I'm not directly responding to the motion. The motion has a much broader time frame for those 2 services. I do not have those costed today as proposed in the motion. But what I was saying was the $20,000 roughly is unfunded today. And so we would need a funding source identified for that.
Councillor Shantz?
So that's the only piece that's missing from our budget, is that $20,000 piece? And I'm sorry, I couldn't call up all my reports and I couldn't see the route either.
Craig, I will come to you shortly. The answer is, at this point, to serve the motion, I do not have accurate costing based on what is in the motion. The number I've provided you is how we previously operated the 91, which was the late night loop. And Craig, how we would fund?
Through the chair, obviously if directed by council, part of our next exercise would be to do a costing based on the proposed level of service. That would come back as a recommendation to council, and at that point, depending on the the overall cost, we could then make some recommendations in terms of how to fund it for the 4 months that it would be in place for this year and give council some indication of the annualized cost going into the 2025 budget.
Thank you. Councillor Craig.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I can be supportive of the motion if I know, in fact, what the different aspects across the region in terms of equitable service in a report could come to us. I would be supportive, but I think we have to wait. I want to know not only the cost, but I also want to know if there are other areas in the region of municipality of Waterloo that in fact have needs that would merit or would equal what's being asked for tonight. So I'm not opposed to it, but I think when you look at different power centers, you look at the industrial parks where people work at night, all of that. I mean, I would like to have some answers and a more global view of what the needs are for this kind of nighttime service across the region. So I would suggest that we should defer this to the next council, get a report back on all these questions about equity across the region, about costs. And to me, that would be the best way to move forward. So to the delegations, it's not saying no. It's saying, let's look at things and let's do this properly. That's my concern. So I can't support yes going ahead tonight, but I would support at the right time a deferral to the next council with a report from staff with regards to the equity issues across the region and the costs of this particular service in response to other services.
So Councillor Craig, I'm just going to look for clarification. My understanding was Councillor James was actually going to refer this to staff. You're suggesting deferring it. This was to refer to staff to come back with exactly the kind of questions such as costing. But if you want to table a motion to deferral, that would take precedence.
I certainly don't want to come into conflict with Councillor James. I've been in that fight before, haven't done too well. But what I would like to do is to work in concert with Councillor James moving ahead. I think this is doable at some point, but I need to have some comfort about the overall community in the region of Waterloo with regards to equity. That's all.
So I'm sensing there's universal support for this, but there's also need for more information to come back and have it referred to staff. So I'm going to go to Councillor James, and then I would call the question unless somebody feels really compelled to make a statement or a question. So Councillor James, is it your intention to refer this to staff?
Yeah, I think given the financial implications, and I understand the equity piece across all areas, and I think that's what that business plan is about, recognizing the need and the ask that, the students who reached out and those who take night transit, I think there's an important piece to raise this right now. Chantal, okay? But yeah, there's some questions that need to come back from staff. And, in being transparent, this motion was made with collaboration with myself, and the students and staff was not involved a whole lot in this. So there is some questions that need to be, come back to us.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go to the list. So Councillor Craig, you're satisfied? Councillor Foxton, did you want to make a comment?
I do. Councillor Shantz asked the questions I asked about the cost, and I'm going to make you a councillor again, Craig. Craig Dyer is going to look up the financials for us. I want to get back to equity. Now, the Township of North Dumfries doesn't have transit, but we would not want night transit. I don't think we do necessary equity. We do need. We don't have a student population like this anywhere else in the region that actually needs this service this badly. So I see this as a top priority, okay? I see my township as a priority, but in its sequence, and we're fighting that fight at the province for funding and everything else. But I think we have to stop using the word equity and go by the need. Because there's nothing, well, okay, but all right, that is equity, Councillor James says, then we'll do equity. But I think we have to follow the need. And this is a need existing now. that I think we should, I like the motion where it says we do from September to December and get on the 2025 budget. And I will wholeheartedly support that, because I'm sure Mr. Dyer can find us the money somewhere. Show me the money. But again, and if this plan is coming through from staff on a transit that will cover all areas, I'm excited about that we can look at it all together and do what's fair and right for the whole of the region. But this is a top priority, because I don't think we have this many density of students in one area that need this service so badly. Thank you.
Councillor McCabe.
Thank you very much, through you, Chair. And I was going to say pretty much what Councillor Foxton just did. This is serving a unique part of our region. We have 3 post-secondary campuses in a very, within about 2 kilometers of each other. We have a very vibrant nightlife. We have cafes that are open until whatever time, plus people who work at those places, so who need a way to get around in the evening. I think this is really an example of where density really builds. Transit serves dense areas like this very, very well, and it's a really great example of how density can really, build that vibrancy in a city. We also have, as I said, I didn't realize we had so many GO buses coming in the evenings, like late night or early morning. That's a provincial service that is driven by demand. So the demand is clearly there. I mean, again, you have to. This is a case where students are using it. Students or others are using it in the, in the early hours of the evening. So this is a case of safety, right? I honestly didn't realize there was so many students coming back at that time of night who needed then connections. So I think as Councillor Foxton just said, this is an area that's a priority. It's a restoration of past service, and when we do get to the point where we need night service across the whole region, we can't launch it as a blanket service across the entire region all at once. We're going to implement it in pilots and in stages, and this is really the place to do it. I did have one slight amendment to your motion, that it's not Waterloo Town Square, it's Waterloo Public Square. We're not a town anymore. But yeah, so if you could make that change, that would be great.
That's me showing my age, Councillor McCabe.
Okay, Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question to Commissioner Spooner. The additional costs of security, maintenance, those kinds of things, would they be incurred in the 4-month trial period, or were you referring to something that would be when we would implement this across the whole region?
Through you, Chair. The answer to that is no. The introduction of just the 91 as it previously existed, the hour-and-a-half extension at the end of the day would require very minimal and additional adjustments. The large changes that I was talking to you about in terms of the operating model would come with the implementation of a broader night transit network.
Okay, thank you. I think, this is, we should be supporting this. This is a service that we did eliminate, and it deserves to be reinstated. And like others, the information that 4 buses were coming, or 4 GO's transit buses were coming in past 12 o'clock, I think is a significant safety issue that we have to be conscious of. And so I'm happy to support this.
So I'm going to go back to Councillor James and just say, for clarity, this has been moved and seconded, and this will be referred to staff for further information to come back, correct?
Well, I'm hearing from council there's a lot of support for this. I do recognize there's a financial constraint, and I don't want to make things all confusing, but I'm hoping at the very least, and maybe this is an amendment to this motion, that the 91 be reinstated for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday at that costing of around $20,000. There's minimal impact, and then a further review come back later on with an expansion.
So the clerk is telling me that even you can't amend your own motion.
Well, okay.
I'll move that amendment.
Okay, Councillor Foxton has moved that amendment. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Shantz. I think there's great support and a lot of agreement to this, but I think little steps and incremental steps, because the worst thing we can do is either say we're going to offer this or offer this and then have to take it back. So this will then, this is Route 91, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The clerks is just going to work their magic, and then I will read it to everybody. Councillor Craig, are you in the list to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I can support the amendment, but I want to make it very clear. When I talk about equity, I want staff be looking at other parts of the region in terms of concerns in different areas, different routes, and that all of this be put together in terms of what the priorities will be going forward. That's all I'm asking. I think it's important.
Thank you, and I believe we've got an assurance from staff that that will be coming back. We're just wordsmithing right now, and I would remind council that directly after this meeting, I will entertain a motion to go back into closed because we have a good hour or so left of unfinished business. So colleagues, it is now up before us. It is the notice of motion that Councillor James presented. And very soon, we're going to zero in on what the So I'm going to read the change. Therefore, be it resolved that GRT temporarily reinstate Route 91 late night loop on a Thursday to Saturday before the date of September 1st, 2024. Therefore, be further resolved that GRT incorporate loops 91 and 92 as written above or equivalent night transit operations into the 2025 business plan and service improvement. Therefore, be it resolved that the extensions to public night transit options be included in the budget items of the 2025 budget season. I guess the only thing that I would flag is it says before the date of September the 1st, and I guess I would look at staff and say, is that a realistic line in the sand? And I don't know, Mr. Spooner, if that's something you can speak to or we need to come back to.
Yeah, through you, Chair, the service change date in September is actually September 2nd, so it's the following day.
So we're all clear on the amended motion that we will now be voting on. So please use your e-scribe to vote. Colleagues, that is carried. So that amended motion is now carried. Any unfinished business? Other business? Questions? I would now entertain a motion to enact the bylaws first, second, and third readings. So Councillor McCabe is going to move it. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Erb. Please use your e-scribe. It's 19.1 through 19.4. Colleagues, that is carried. We now need a motion to go back into close to finish unfinished business, but don't jump off your e-scribe because then we need a motion to adjourn, which I know is going to break all of your hearts. So if I could have a motion to go into closed, moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Saladin. Please use your e-scribe to vote. Oh, I did. So I understand we're having a few glitches. Is there anybody MIA? Rayanne? Colleagues, that is carried. I now need to entertain a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Nowak, seconded. Councillor Leggett, would you like to second that? That's great. I can see it in your eyes. Please use your e-scribe to vote yes or no for adjournment. Colleagues, that is carried. We will now reconvene in the Waterloo room.
I also had to